Hey, what's happening, everyone? It is I, the man, the myth, the mustache, Tim here, and I've got a brand new video and series for you. Welcome to part 1 of What If Deku Had a Slime Quirk. I just wanted to stop by and say hello, and please sit back and relax because you are in for a treat. With that out of the way, let's get this party started! In a local park, a shaken young boy with frizzy green hair stood with his fist up in defense of another youth that laid on the ground. His eyes full of tears, his fight-or-flight impulses blasting on full, standing his ground against a group of delinquents led by a red-eyed boy with spiky blonde hair, whose palms had multiple small explosions erupting from them, as he smiled wickedly towards the frightened boy. "You useless Deku! Get out of the way, quirkless idiot!" shouted the atomic blonde as he slowly took steps towards the juniper-haired boy. Charging towards the whimpering youth, the blonde boy primed his explosive palms. The green-haired boy's eyes shut instinctively, and suddenly, his physical body began to dissolve, creating a translucent blue puddle. Shocked, the blonde boy could not stop his momentum, and slipped harshly against the slime, which sent him crashing into a dumpster, bending it inwards and sending trash flying. As he opened his eyes, the living puddle scanned the area. His view was foreign, as everything seemed massive to him through this new perspective. The other two boys were stunned at the events that just transpired, as they stared at the now semi-injured blonde and the puddle he slipped on that was formerly Izuku Midoriya. The child who was hiding behind Midoriya yelled as they ran away from the area, escaping their unfortunate situation.
What's going on?"
shouted Midoriya in confusion, his voice nearly gurgling out of his now semi-liquid form. Upon hearing the alien-like tone emitted by the viscous puddle, the two boys ran off frightened, leaving Midoriya and the blonde on their own. The now panicking Midoriya yelled out loudly for assistance, but sadly, no one was in the immediate vicinity. Finally, after just a few moments, the frightened youth came to a conclusion.
"Wait, I have a quirk! I have a quirk!"
shouted Midoriya gleefully to the heavens as his quirkless nightmare had finally come to an end. While Midoriya muttered to himself, still in his semi-liquid puddle form, the atomic blonde began to compose himself and get out of the trash. He gritted his teeth angrily, but was stunned to see that his companions and his targets were nowhere in sight. Tilting his head in confusion, the youth dusted himself off and was about to leave, until he noticed the talking puddle that was beneath Midoriya's discarded clothes. Deku?" asked the puzzled blonde, which broke the semi-liquid child's endless muttering. A face then formed on the puddle and began staring at the boy. A broad smile-like shape formed below the eyes.
"Gotcha! Look, I got a quirk!"
exclaimed the blue slime loudly, which disgusted the blonde, causing him to run off, but not before yelling out in frustration, "Gross! You're a frickin' booger!" However, the blonde's words did not impact the boy, who was still beaming with happiness. After a few minutes of thinking about his situation, Midoriya began concentrating. His eyes shut tightly while his slime body began to reconstitute itself into a humanoid form. Then, with enough concentration and effort, he was able to return to his solid form. First, he jumped for joy in the middle of the park. Then a cold breeze went by, and with a glance downwards, he noticed he was naked. Turning as red as a tomato, the boy grabbed his clothing and covered himself up before he ran as fast as he could back home. When the youth arrived at his home, he gleefully told his mother the news of his transformation. The two embraced as her worries washed away, and her son's dream of becoming a hero would happen. Quickly, his mother scheduled an appointment with their local quirk specialist to analyze his new abilities further. The following day, the Midoriya family sat across from the mustachioed doctor, awaiting the final results from the various tests performed on the eager child. The light chirping of the birds outside of the office drowned out the awkward silence of the room, as Unko began to experience anxiety from the quirk doctor's silence. After a few seconds, the doctor sighed, placed his file down on the desk, removed the goggles from his face, and revealed empty eyes. Unko began to sweat profusely, as the doctor's body language could be perceived as if he was about to give bad news. Just as the health professional was about to give his tragic information, Midoriya blissfully bounced up and down from his seat in the shape of a mochi ball, a goofy smile present on his slimy face. "Well, Miss Midoriya, I don't know how to say this, but "Your son is a slime." His delivery was deadpan, which caused Inko to fall off from her seat as the diagnosis was rather obvious. Then he elaborated on his diagnosis, stating that young Midoriya had a particular type of mutation quirk. With enough concentration, the boy could transform his entire body into pure slime. The remarkable part of his quirk was that his cells would completely change upon transformation, leaving a non-human entity. As a slime, Midoriya could change his body's shape, traverse through small pathways, move through liquids, and stretch to inhuman lengths. But at the moment, the green-haired boy could only change from his human form to a puddle or into the shape of a sphere. Although they discovered that his quirk's development was sparked throughout the tests due to strong emotion, negative emotions caused his physical form to destabilize and go into his present state. The years passed, and Midoriya managed to get a hold of his abilities as a slime, though his former friend turned bully, Katsuki Bakugo, continued to torment him constantly, though most of the time from a distance. Moreover, he had an inherent disgust towards Midoriya, calling him names such as booger or snot to attempt to discourage the youth from chasing his heroic aspirations. The bell rang loudly as another semester at Aldera Junior High had finally come to a close, and the joyful Midoriya held the straps of his bag, making his way home. Amongst the eager teens exiting the school was a spiky blonde who held an irate look on his face. Seeing the green-haired boy slide through the crowds of students, Bakugo attempted to push through, only to be knocked around in the commotion. "You won't get away from me!" shouted the boy, as the shorter boy would disappear into the crowd. Flashes of the incident from years ago played in his head, when Midoriya's quirk had awakened, and the humiliation Bakugo felt when he was covered in trash. Throughout the years, he held a never-ending grudge, and Midoriya's constant smile just caused him to lose his temper. Leaving through the doors of the junior high, the atomic blonde shoved and knocked over many of his fellow students. One boy would quickly recover and get back to his feet, his intention being to confront the bully, but once his eyes met the bloody irises of Bakugo, he quickly shied away. "Oi, booger!" shouted the atomic blonde, his fists clenched tightly to the point his knuckles turned to a ghostly white. He ran up to Midoriya to shorten the distance that had formed in the commotion. Then as Midoriya stopped in his tracks, he turned his neck to slime and turned his head around to face Bakugo. The sudden act made the blonde stagger back, his eyes opening widely and the hairs on the back of his neck stand on end. Disgust overwhelmed him. "Hey, Kacchan, what's up?" asked the boy, who turned his body around to match the orientation of his head. Midoriya's body's fluid motion made Bakugo's stomach turn, nearly making him lose his train of thought. "Look, Snot Rocket, you better not think of applying your disgusting ass to UA!" The irritated blonde threatened, opening his palms and triggering small explosions, just as he was accustomed to doing for intimidation. Midoriya grinned and lifted his hands as if to surrender, lightly laughing, not taking the threat seriously, which irritated Bakugo to no end. After some back and forth, the two boys parted ways, and Midoriya continued on home. Unfortunately, due to ongoing villain attacks in the city, his usual path home was blocked, so it took a long way around and passed through an underpass without a care in the world. Just as he stepped on a manhole cover, it began to shake violently before blasting upwards and embedding itself into the bricks. A wretched stench filled the air as green sludge jumped out of the sewers, its coloration a moldy green. Yellow eyes with blood-red pupils stared down at the green-haired boy. It opens its disfigured jaw, revealing large, sharp teeth, its slimy tongue waving from within.
"Excellent! A skin suit! Just what I needed!"
growled the sludge monster, as it stretched its mucky palms towards the student that seemed like easy prey. Its size grew even larger as it towered over the junior high schooler and cast a shadow over the boy. Just as the monster thought it had the boy in its grasp, it found itself only holding onto discarded clothing, which made it stop dead in its tracks. The green sludge monster held on to the black uniform unmoving for a few seconds, not knowing what to say.
What the hell?"
It asked out loud, until from the corner of its eye, it could see a blue ball of slime with a gentle smile on its face. The villain threw the clothing away and angrily charged towards the ball of slime. And just like before, it missed entirely, and Midoriya had appeared just out of the villain's grasp. This game of whack-a-mole continued for several minutes until the villain began screaming in pure frustration, until a familiar laugh could be heard entering the fray. A massive muscular silhouette could be seen casting a powerful shadow along the ground, which grabbed the two's attention. Then, with the sunlight shining behind him, the golden-haired pillar of justice made his presence known.
Have no fear, for I am here,
All Might announced, his fists on his sides in a heroic pose, which caused the sludge villain to panic instinctively.
All Might, no, reconsider,
pleaded the sludge villain, as All Might wasted no time and launched a powerful punch, displacing the air with gale-forced winds, which blasted the villain apart. The sunken-eyed hero then set his view to the blue slime on the side. The hero began reeling back his fist to attack the boy as well, thinking them to be on the same side. Midoriya's heart sank as panic began to overtake him, and he rapidly forced his body to return back to its human form. Then he waved his arms in the air to catch the attention of the number one hero, which caused the muscled man to stop and jump back. All Might, no, I'm not a villain! He spoke at a frantic pace, with his eyes completely shut, and fear still ruled over him. After a second or two of awkward silence, a cool breeze passed through the area, which caused Midoriya's skin to goosebump. Then the familiar realization came to him. He was once again naked. He shouted in embarrassment and turned red from head to toe, and covered himself immediately. The hero of peace turned his back and rubbed the back of his head, not knowing what to do with the situation while Midoriya quickly dressed. Luckily, no one else was around. Midoriya bowed multiple times and apologized to his idol for unknowingly flashing him during his heroic moment. After getting a signature from All Might, the blonde hero collected the unconscious body of the slime villain and forced it into 2 bottles that he slid into his pockets. All Might then exited the area with a powerful jump, soaring over the skies of Japan and leaving the youth jumping for joy as he held his notebook that now contained All Might's signature. While Midoriya made his way home, from behind the boy, a small green ball of slime dragged itself across his back until it melded through the fibers and seeped into his skin, unbeknownst to the aspiring hero. That night, Midoriya slept peacefully as he embraced the signed notebook. During the 10 months between the UA entrance exam and the school semester's end, Midoriya focused on using his abilities in ways that he could only imagine. He was able to learn how to shape his body into such a size that he could squeeze through keyholes, through cracks between doors, and even jumping into metal pipes of his home, although only occasionally did he burst a pipe or two, which flooded his home. Midoriya's pet hamster was very much disturbed by the green-haired boy as he used his pet's cage tubing as a sort of obstacle course, leaving the traumatized rodent shaking in the corner in fear. Although, Midoriya did experience an abnormality. His normal blue tone in his slime form had progressively begun to change into a bright green shade. He paid no mind to it and just chalked it up to his body still evolving, as he was a teenager. Unbeknownst to him, there was something far more sinister in the works. The day of the UA entrance exam was upon them, and Midoriya stood tall in front of the steps of the prestigious Hero Academy. His smile was wide, and his eyes shined like diamonds as he took his first steps to those hallowed halls. But sadly, his first step was a slip, and he was currently on his way to the ground. A brown-haired girl attempted to hit the falling boy, but she was just an inch too far away as his face fell straight to the ground, splatting and dissolving into a green puddle. The girl with the shoulder-length hair yelped loudly and immediately ran away from the shock of it all. But the now decomposed teen stayed still. Embarrassment caused his cells to remain unstable, keeping him from reconstituting his form. "This is fine. Everything's fine," thought Midoriya, as the loud bell signaled the beginning of the entrance exams. Now alone, he forced his body to reform and forced himself to his feet, running into the UA campus. The green-haired boy pushed the doors open, the loud slamming of the doors getting the attention of hundreds of seated hopeful heroes, all craning their necks towards him with disapproving glares. Through the embarrassment and glares, Midoriya made his way towards the proctor, received his testing forms, and ran to his assigned seat. The pencil he used nearly slipped from his inconsistently formed palms, their compositions shifting between slime and human. Fighting through the nervous energy running through him, Midoriya finished the test, somewhat confident in his success. For the next hour or so, the large grouping of would-be heroes remained sat firmly in the auditorium. The excitement caused a minor commotion amongst the teens. The situation was then calmed as a blonde man with a flashy grin walked up to the stage. He was dressed in leather with a type of speaker system attached to his neck. The green-haired boy quickly recognized the man as voice hero President Mike. The reveal of such a famous hero caused the boy to be somewhat starstruck, but his attention would quickly shift to the presentation.
Alright, kiddos, now that we're done with the old pen and paper, it's time for the practical exam!
Said President Mike, his voice reverberating through the auditorium, which grabbed the attention of the youths in attendance.
Get ready, guys and gals! You guys are gonna be fighting giant robots!
He announced as he pointed dramatically to the large screen behind him, revealing the foes they would be facing. A good deal of the teens seemed somewhat discouraged, as not all of the hopefuls possessed flashy quirks suited for this type of exercise. Included in that grouping was the eager Midoriya, who muttered loudly, which brought more unwanted attention towards the teen. President Mike attempted to ignore the green-haired boy until a tall, bespectacled boy began chastising him intensely. The verbal assault on Midoriya caused his complexion to begin shifting colors from a peachy shade to a slimy blue. Before things could escalate, the leather-bound hero spoke up loudly to shut down the interaction completely and sent them back to their seats. Once instructions were clear, the youths conglomerated in different testing areas, large doors with their sectors marked clear as day. The teens had changed into athletic wear and began preparing for the challenge ahead of them. Midoriya stretched in anticipation of the exam until he noticed the brown-haired girl he frightened earlier in the day. Then, just as he approached her, he was intercepted by the tall boy from the auditorium.
Don't you dare break that girl's concentration! I will not have you ruining others' chances of getting into this prestigious institution, hoodlum!
Said the bespectacled boy sternly, his impressive physique standing strong, intimidating Midoriya enough to step back sheepishly towards the large doors. Suddenly, the steel doors began opening, no signal in sight, which confused the teens.
What are y'all waiting for? There ain't any start signs in real life! Go, go, go!
Shouted President Mike as he pointed towards the door, which caused startled examinees to rush forward, trampling those who stood in their way. As the dust settled, all that was left was a flattened blue puddle surrounded by a green tracksuit, with the blue slime trickling from the clothes. Well, that's great. So sighed the slimy youth as he remained in his congealed slime form, sliding out of his clothing and forming a humanoid slime form. Then, as he ran into the field, he used the slippery nature of his condition to glide through the replica city. Midoriya's eyes marveled at the intricate structure. It indeed looked like an actual city. The cost of constructing such an area would be something the teen would have to question later on. Sliding through the area, he happily crossed in front of some of the clumsier machines, and left a slime trail behind that caused them to fall to the ground, being crushed under their weight. He snickered as he continued through the area. Using the malleability of his form, Midoriya would also find more creative ways of taking down the heavier machinery. When causing them to tumble wouldn't be sufficient, he would jump in between gaps in their armor and short-circuit them. To others, it just seemed as if the robots would smoke and collapse, only for a cyan slime creature to secrete from them, grossing many teens out in the process. Racking up point after point, the translucent hero hopeful felt his odds for getting into the Hero Academia to grow in his favor. Then, just as the robots began to seem scarce, a massive mechanical titan outstretched its head from in between the buildings. The eyes of the slime bulged out, comically reacting with shock to the mechanical titan's sudden appearance. The crowd of students began running away from the approaching monstrosity, and Midoriya was about to join them until cries of help would reach him from a distance. Then, focusing his vision, the slimy youth recognized the brunette as the girl from before. Gulping audibly, the slime boy instinctively began dashing forward, no plan in mind. Just as the giant robot began approaching the girl, its massive steel boot about to come down on her, Midoriya jumped into action. A blue blur cast a shadow across the girl's face that quickly shot up towards the machine's head. His humanoid form shifted to that of a sphere and slid through the metal body at intense speeds. Suddenly, the tint in the slime began to go from blue to green as he jumped above the robot's head, his body suddenly spreading like a green blanket, completely wrapping the machine's head.
Time for you to die!
Shouted an eerie voice, with a cold cackle following close behind, as the pressure around the steel suddenly increased and crushed the machinery. The sudden action caused the robot to tumble backwards, but its circuits began firing and igniting into a flashy explosion during the fall. The slime boy was shot from the machine like a rubber band, making a direct impact on the side of a wall, which caused a loud splat and spread his body from the collision. After some time on the wall, the slime reconstituted and slid from the wall onto the ground. The mound of slime then began reforming to its normal state, the body of Izuku Midoriya. The loud alarms that signaled the end of the exams impacted the ears of many students participating. Most of the applicants stood dumbfounded by the sudden actions of the boy, some filled with awe, others with disgust from the slimy nature of the teen's quirk. Then seemingly, all at once, they quickly averted their eyes, for when his body reformed, he was naked. UA paramedics and nursing staff began entering the field and treating the injured youths, though when they reached Midoriya, they found he didn't have a single scratch on him. On the other hand, he seemed at peace, snoring loudly on the ground.
You don't see that every day,
said the elderly recovery girl, as she instructed her team to place the young Midoriya on a gurney and take him to the infirmary for monitoring. His stay in the medical area was brief, an hour at most. Soon after waking up, his clothes were returned to him, and he made his way back home. The weeks passed, and Midoriya paced around anxiously inside his room, his thoughts still trying to analyze the exams. He was sure that he had performed optimally to get into his dream school, but why hadn't his acceptance letter arrived? Suddenly the door to his room flew open. His mother, out of breath, held a letter in her palm as she gestured towards her son. Izuku, it's a letter from UA, she yelled out, which caused Midoriya's hair to stand on end, as he snatched the letter and opened it quickly, which caused a strange disc to fall from it. They fumbled the disc until it reached his desk, and activated a hologram, which displayed the hero of peace, All Might in all his splendor. Both of the Midoriya's eyes widened at the sight, holding each other's hands for support, as the yellow-suited muscle man began to speak.
Booyah! I am here as a protector now! Greetings, young Midoriya, and forgive me for startling you!
The blonde-haired pro-hero began posing and flexing as a hand in the background waved at him to continue.
Alright, yes. Wait, I have to record how many of these things?
Coughing and recomposing himself, the hero flashed his signature grin as he placed his hands on his sides in a power pose.
Young man, you aced the written exam, and as for the practical exam, you managed a total of 53 villain points.
The man's voice echoed through the two Midoriya's ears as their eyes began to fill with tears.
But wait, there's more. We had a secondary scoring system. Since you risked your life to protect a young girl in danger and managed to save her, you have been awarded an additional 60 rescue points, giving you a total of 113 points.
Young Midoriya began calculating the score in his head. The dam of tears had broken, which caused both Midoriyas to cry intensely.
Not only have you achieved a score to join our ranks, but you achieved the overall top score. Congratulations, young Midoriya!
The suited yellow man outstretched his hands in a welcoming fashion as he continued.
And welcome to the Hero Academia!
The two Midoriyas yelled in glee as they embraced each other, and their intense happiness overwhelmed them completely. And that's our video, so thank you all for sticking around, and I hope you enjoyed it! Before you go, I want you to know that We the Celestials has many other channels for your entertainment and viewing pleasures. All the information you'll need is right below in the description, so please feel free to check out all the other incredible projects and content our team creates. Secondly, on behalf of We the Celestials, I want to thank everyone involved in the production of today's awesome content. Their details will be in the description below. And like I said, that's it for today's video, so thank you all for watching, and I hope you have a fantastic day. And as always, be kind to yourselves, be kind to others, and stay awesome. This has been Tim, Mustache out.